Listen, you're a Trump voter. You're the biggest establishment stooge that, could possibly exist. You realize all of your Trump criticisms are directly parroting the corporate media and all of the voices on television that should give you red flags? So here's the problem. You're talking about corporate media. What you really mean is, factual media. All of my Trump criticisms are directly parroting literally everyone but Breitbart and the Daily Stormer and InfoWars agrees on certain basic truths about Trump's mismanagement of the economy, Trump's mismanagement of COVID. Literally everyone with any authority on any level of factual accuracy. There are criticisms of corporate media, but just because I don't like corporate media doesn't mean that I'm a stooge for agreeing with them on the things that literally everyone with any level of reputability agrees with them. Corporate media always tells the truth? No, they don't. CNN has our best interests at heart? No, they don't. They just want to inform us? Not always. You do understand that it is possible to individually assess bits of information that are given to you. Corporate media is a bubble. There's not a giant conspiracy to disinform the public. Corporate media is a bubble where ultimately the kinds of people who get hired to corporate media, like CNN and the New York Times, tend to be people from certain educational backgrounds, tend to people from certain kinds of socioeconomic bubbles, and it's hard to penetrate that bubble. So those those forms of media will have certain kinds of biases, because people at CNN come from a certain socioeconomic background, they will tend to be biased towards certain corporatist beliefs, and that tends to infect their level of reporting. That tends to make them more hostile to anti-establishment elements like Bernie and more hostile to anti-establishment elements like Trump. The difference is that their opposition to Bernie is not valid because Bernie's opposition to the establishment is rooted in tons of empirical success in social democratic policies in Europe, while on the opposite end of the spectrum, Trump has absolutely no basis for anything that he says because none of his policies have ever created a just and prosperous society anywhere around the globe. So, listen, I'm not a fan of corporate media, but that doesn't mean that they're always wrong, and that doesn't mean that every criticism of them is correct. So you and I are not going to find allyship on this. Just because we're both anti-establishment, guess what? Trump is the establishment, and he's filling up the swamp. You realize their bias has been exposed numerous times? Yes, their bias against the left has been exposed numerous times. In fact, they did it last night, where they accused AOC of not endorsing Joe Biden when she, NBC News. Chuck Todd is an extremely anti-left media commentator. And to the point where the political news division that he directs accused AOC of not endorsing Joe Biden in her speech last night. She was specifically asked to nominate Bernie on behalf of the American people as the runner-up to the nomination. It was completely procedural. It was totally a function of, and she has endorsed Biden in the past. You're an establishment stooge? Cool story, bro. I think I've pretty much established that I'm not. Oh no, I said established. Oh god, that was a dog whistle. That was an establishment dog whistle. Listen, you're a Trump voter. You're the biggest establishment stooge that, could possibly exist. You do realize that he promised he was going to drain the swamp, and then he just filled it up with people who are loyal to him? Literally anybody who said, oh my god, Trump, let me lick your boots. And quite frankly, a million different plutocrats who had their... You think Steve Mnuchin is not part of the establishment? You think that, do you think that, Alan Dershowitz and Larry Kudlow? I don't know. I don't know if you really... I don't know if you continue to support Trump, I don't think you're the best judge of what an establishment stooge is. I'm sorry. Romney, McCain, Cheney, the Bushes, Paul Ryan, McConnell, all of the Democrats, all of Hollywood, and all the corporate media are rabid enemies of Trump? Yes, because... So... Romney, McCain, Cheney, the Bushes, Paul Ryan. You think McConnell's an enemy of Trump? Oh my god, do you live in Kentucky? Amy McGrath might actually win if you think McConnell's an enemy of Trump. Holy cow. Oh, is it because McConnell, is it because McConnell said that we shouldn't interfere with the USPS? He said one thing that was critical of Trump, so you think that Mitch McConnell is an enemy of Trump. I'm sorry, please justify the belief that Mitch McConnell's an enemy of Trump. We'll talk about the others. We'll talk about the others. McConnell kind of came with Trump, but he was a never Trump back in 2016. Half the people were most Republicans were never Trumpers back in 2016 until he won the nomination. And then they all lined up to lick his boots. Do you think that has something to do with Trump, or do you think it has to do with people trying to protect their careers? Do you think Bill Barr is anti-establishment? I'm sorry, be honest. Do you think Bill Barr, who worked in the Bush 41 administration, who has a long-term neoconservative authoritarian project, like this is a guy whose entire life's work is plutocracy. Do you think Bill Barr is anti-establishment? Like, so Romney, McCain, Cheney, the Bushes, and Paul Ryan. Let's take a look. Dick Cheney, Trump. I don't know if he had anything. It looks like he doesn't have anything to say about Trump. So let's grant that he's anti. So you know why these people don't like Trump? These people don't like Trump because he threatens a longer experiment that they have, and they think that he is a threat to American neo-fascism, which he is. Right now, like the issue is, so if he wins, it is probably the end of the American experiment. But he has a capability to lose this election like somebody with the smarts of someone like Dick Cheney would never, ever, ever have. Remember when the media pushed a fake Russophobic conspiracy theory for 2 years before it was debunked? It was never debunked. It was never debunked. Literally what Mueller's report said was, I do not have enough evidence to recommend removing a president from power to indict them for collusion, but there was definitely collusion that happened under this administration. That was what he said. Like, that's literally what he said. And then he also said that there was significant evidence to suggest that Trump obstructed justice. But he could not push for indictments because you can't indict a sitting president. So no, there was absolutely no debunking of the Russiagate, or as you guys call it, a conspiracy theory. Remember when the media deliberately lied about Nick Sandmann to suit their agenda and nearly ruined his life? Is Nick Sandmann the conservative kid who yelled at the indigenous person? Oh God. Yeah, listen, of course the media got that wrong. Of course the media got that wrong. Smiling MAGA kid. The media got that wrong. Listen, that doesn't make him not a piece of shit, okay? I don't like ruining kids' lives. I don't think kids should get in that much trouble for... I don't think kids should get in that much trouble. That doesn't make him innocent. Well, as a kid, by definition, almost he's innocent. But, like, that doesn't make his actions benign. It's just that the things the media accused him of were patently incorrect. Of course, the video made it easy to draw false conclusions. They didn't get it wrong. They deliberately lied. I saw nothing about the media deliberately lying. And quite frankly, I have zero reason to believe you. You have said that because COVID deaths are fewer than economic deaths due to COVID lockdowns, which is not true, by the way. But because even granting the premise that the COVID deaths are fewer than the lockdown deaths, that's a reason we shouldn't care about COVID, which shows that you have no idea about how pandemic management or any kind of measure placed to prevent harm works, because you're implying that if we hadn't placed the measures, that death toll wouldn't be like massive multiples of what it is now. You've suggested to me that Russiagate was a conspiracy theory, which is just not true. The claim was Russia hacked the election in favor of Trump. They literally did. There was immense amounts of cyber terrorism. There's immense amounts of hacking. No one said that Russia rigged the election. It just said that Russia interfered in the election, which absolutely they did. It said that there were elements within Trump's government that colluded with him and Trump's campaign that colluded with him, which absolutely they were. It said that there were massive conflicts of interest in Trump's campaign with the Russians, which absolutely there were. And then it said that it was possible that Trump himself directed and covered up for the collusion, which there was not enough evidence to suggest he did, but there was plenty of evidence to suggest he obstructed justice when people tried to investigate him. including credible reports of conversations in which he said that he was going to fire Comey specifically to protect himself. Oh, no, it was the I'm hoping you can let this go conversation with Comey. The fact that you just said that proves my point. They deliberately lied. I mean, listen, that could be, it's possible they deliberately lied, but there's absolutely no, there's no pattern of behavior to suggest that they would deliberately lie, because they don't generally deliberately lie. They will be disingenuous. They will misconstrue. And they'll jump to conclusions. With Trump, it's most likely to jump to conclusions. They're disingenuous typically when it comes to the left, and they will jump to conclusions when it comes to the right. But I have no reason to believe without evidence that they deliberately lied, and you are not a credible source on that point. Look up the work of Project Veritas. Oh yeah, Project Veritas, that group that has literally been discredited by every single reputable fact-checking news source, media source, every single person with any level of epistemic credibility. I think James O'Keefe is definitely a solid source of information. By CNN, what? Yes, videos of CNN were literally every single Project Veritas story has been massively discredited. I don't go out of my way to look at them anymore. I saw a couple of videos and was like, wow, this looks really bad. And then I saw a complete breakdown of this is how these videos are doctored and misshapen, and these narratives are misconstrued. You'll have videos of CNN workers. They will they will find hundreds of different CNN workers, find someone who has social media posts that are particularly leftist, and then they will go talk to that person, engage them in whomever they can find. They will engage that person, like some janitor who works at Time Warner, or maybe even someone on the reporting staff who happens to hold particularly left views, or who happens to believe some random thing, who has never taken those views to air. It's funny because you guys are the people. You guys are the people who are constantly like, God, you shouldn't get fired from your work. You shouldn't get punished at your work for views that you hold outside of work. And then you buy into the Project Veritas BS that literally, all Project Veritas does is it tries to find people who work at a place that they dislike, who have views that they can color as distasteful. And then use that to say CNN has been taken over by socialists. It's really pathetic. It's really pathetic. The whole Russia thing is just a nothing burger. Wow, look at that, a soundbite. And yes, I thought the Russia thing was overblown. You're confused, man, but I wish you well. Just keep an open mind is all I ask. Yeah, that's how I came to the left, dude. Just think of things critically and don't trust or mistrust a single source just because of who they are. I don't look at Project Veritas anymore because they have never, ever made a report that was not widely discredited by literally every single, you take CNN, you take Fox News, you take MSNBC and CNBC. These are people with widely ranging levels of bias and disdain for each other and constant opposition to each other. The thing that 99% of them all agree on is that Project Veritas sucks. Stop looking at Project Veritas, dude. Honestly. I mean, you can look at them, but always look at the critical assessments of their sources, of their reporting, because Project Veritas is not a reliable news source. Just don't look at them. It saves you time. Only the corporate media is credible? I never said that. I literally never said that. I said that just because there are flaws in the corporate media doesn't mean that anyone who's not corporate media is credible. And you have to use the same processes that we use to deem the corporate media largely credible on reporting general facts. We have to use the same epistemic processes to critique them, and we have to hold them accountable. But also anybody outside of corporate media, you have to take with a pinch of salt. That's why I also limit the amount of leftist news sources that I listen to, because leftist news sources are largely propaganda outlets. So there are only a couple that I regularly listen to. Only the corporate media is credible. I think you're just trying to strawman me, honestly. What is the definition of progressivism? Progressivism, my definition of it, but we'll look up the dictionary definition. I'll give you my definition first. My definition of progressivism is the acknowledgement that our society has injustices in it and a desire to work to solve those injustices in whatever ways are possible for us, and to acknowledge that there are certain rights that humans have that we need to fight for. and that we have to reform society in order to protect those rights, including economic rights, including right to life, right to property, right to dignity, and that certain rights are more important than others. So, like, I would say that economic rights are more important than property rights, which is why I believe in taxation. That's why I believe in redistributive taxation. Others may not agree with me, but that would be like a definitional disagreement. That I think that your ability to like live, that you should not be born into a situation where there's a 95% chance that you're just not going to be able to support yourself to live. Progressivism is a political philosophy in support of social reform, based on the idea of progress in which advancements in science, technology, economic development, and social organization are vital to the, this is Wikipedia, by the way, to the improvement of human condition. Progressivism became highly significant during the Age of Enlightenment in Europe. Yeah, social reform, okay. I think that there is a sense in progressivism that social reform is always possible and always called for, which generally I tend to agree with. You are never perfect as a society. There are always things you can be doing better. And I think that might be a governing principle of progressivism, almost by definition, that you believe in moving forward, that you always believe that society is a work in progress. I tend to agree with that. Which, you know, there are situations in which progressivism involves the scaling back of government programs. It could involve more fiscal laissez-faireism, right? But we're not nearly at that point. It's like people who talk about the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve exists, but we're not nearly at the point of taxation where it does. Sorry, the Laffer curve is an economic concept that suggests that when you cut taxes, that revenue actually goes up because the amount of spending it leads to causes total revenue to go up. And it's it has its applications, but not in current society. So it's bunk political theory, like, effectively. At least until we reach a level of taxation at which more taxation is going to lead to less revenue. Yeah. Listen, I was not a fan of how hard that we went on Russia, right? I think there were much bigger, more material fish to fry that would have been smarter uses of time. Back then, I was eating it up. Back then, I was like way into the Russia stuff, kind of cringily so. But after the fact, after listening to some sources and keeping an open mind, I was actually convinced against that, like, generally speaking, we should not have gone that hard on Russia. That doesn't mean that there wasn't wrongdoing there. It just means, oh my, okay. Decriminalize sex work. It just means that I think that, like, there are smarter political battles to pick, and at the end of the day, if you're not going to impeach, they gained absolutely nothing out of the Russia investigation. I think the Mueller investigation should have just gone through. The media should not have focused so much on it, but the media focused on it because it's good ratings, and that's my problem with the media, is that ultimately it is a business.
Too close.
And that is going to not make them totally non-credible, but rather is going to color the issues they tend to focus on and the lenses they tend to look at things through in terms of what is best for ratings. They might jump to conclusions about, say, the Boston Marathon, because it would be good for ratings to be the first person to break the story. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more content, the best way you can support the channel is to click that like button and subscribe for future videos. I will be covering all sorts of topics. The election, I'll be talking about Biden, the Democratic Party, the global right, healthcare, all sorts of stuff. And if you'd like to join the discussion live, I stream live to Twitch weekdays, typically 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Otherwise, stay tuned for more videos out regularly. Have a great day. Thank you.